In the heart of a distant countryside lay a humble village surrounded by lush fields and flowing rivers. The village was vibrant and self-sufficient, with villagers who took pride in their hard work and simplicity. Among them lived a boy named Ravi, who stood out for one peculiar trait: he was astonishingly lazy. Ravi's parents, Ramesh and Sita, were dedicated farmers. They spent their days laboring in the fields, plowing the soil, and growing crops to ensure a good harvest for their family and community. Ramesh often rose before dawn, his strong hands guiding the oxen through the misty fields. Sita would help plant and water the crops, while also managing the household chores. They hoped Ravi would follow in their footsteps, learning the values of dedication, responsibility, and resilience that rural life demanded. However, Ravi was quite the opposite. While other boys his age were up at the crack of dawn, feeding animals, fetching water, or helping with household tasks, Ravi would sleep until the sun was high in the sky. And even after he awoke, he'd spend hours lounging around, avoiding work. He'd stretch out under the banyan tree near their small mud house, gazing at the clouds and listening to the chirping of birds. If his mother asked him to fetch water from the well, Ravi would groan and claim he was too tired, always coming up with creative excuses. "Ravi," his father would say, "you're growing up, and there's much for you to learn. This land is our life, the crops are what keep us alive. Hard work is our duty." But Ravi's only response would be a lazy nod before wandering off. His parents were concerned, but nothing they tried could change his ways. They hoped that, in time, Ravi would come to understand the importance of work. But as seasons passed, his indifference only grew, and soon, he became the subject of quiet whispers and mild ridicule in the village. "That Ravi is useless," some would say, shaking their heads. "All he does is sleep and sit around." One day, the village headman, a wise old man named Bhaeva, called an assembly. Bhaeva was loved and respected by everyone, known for his fair decisions and concern for each family. He had exciting news: the annual harvest festival, a beloved tradition, was just around the corner. It was a time of celebration, feasting, and music. The villagers would come together to celebrate the bounty of the season, giving thanks to the earth and gods for the food and good fortune. But to prepare, everyone in the village needed to contribute in some way. "The festival is not just a celebration," Bhaeva announced in his deep voice, "it's our village's pride. This year, let's make it the best one yet." Each family was assigned a responsibility: some would arrange for decorations, others would organize the music, and some were in charge of cooking the traditional dishes. Ravi's father volunteered their family to help prepare the grains and spices that would be used during the feast. He saw this as a perfect chance for Ravi to get involved and finally put in some effort. Ramesh approached Ravi later that day, saying, "Ravi, tomorrow, you'll help at the village granary. It's time you understand what it feels like to work with your hands." Ravi frowned. He didn't want to go, but he knew he couldn't keep avoiding things forever. Early the next morning, he set out with his father, trudging reluctantly along the dusty path to the granary, his shoulders slumped. The village granary was bustling with people when they arrived. Young boys his age were carrying sacks of rice, grinding spices, and stacking supplies. Ravi's heart sank as he realized just how much work awaited him. Reluctantly, he tried lifting a sack, but it felt like lifting a boulder. Instead of helping, Ravi quickly sat down on a pile of sacks, pretending to be unwell. He was hoping someone would let him off the hook. But Bhaeva, who was overseeing the preparations, noticed Ravi's indolence and decided it was time to teach him a lesson. Bhaeva called him over and said, Ravi, I have a special task for you. There's something valuable buried in the old field near the mango tree, something only a clever and hard-working person can uncover. Are you up for it? Ravi's eyes sparkled at the mention of something valuable. Yes, sir, he replied enthusiastically, his laziness temporarily forgotten. You must dig patiently, Baeva added, the treasure lies deep, hidden under layers of soil. You may not find it right away, but if you keep digging, I am certain it will reveal itself. Excited by the thought of hidden treasure, Ravi hurried to the field. He picked up a shovel and started digging with vigor. At first, he was energized by his ambition. But soon, as he dug through the thick, hardened soil, his arms began to ache, and his energy waned. Blisters formed on his hands, and sweat dripped from his forehead, but he continued. The field stretched far, and Ravi kept glancing around, hoping to find some sign of the treasure. By midday, he was utterly exhausted. But each time he thought of quitting, the promise of treasure urged him to dig just a little further. Ravi's hands, once smooth and unscathed, were now sore and blistered. His clothes were caked with mud, his hair matted with sweat. Yet, he felt an odd sense of satisfaction he had never felt before. The more he dug, the more determined he grew, even though his muscles screamed in protest. Finally, as the sun began to set, Ravi sat back on the ground, panting, staring at the empty pit he'd created. He was too exhausted to be angry or disappointed. He hadn't found any treasure, but something in him felt strangely accomplished. The next day, Ravi returned to Baeva, expecting to be scolded. I couldn't find anything, sir, he said, holding out his rough, calloused hands. I dug and dug, but there was no treasure. Baeva looked at him and smiled knowingly. Ravi, look at your hands, he said. What do you see? Ravi looked down. His palms were toughened, his skin raw. It wasn't the treasure he'd imagined, but something within him had shifted. For the first time, he saw the value of effort, of pushing past his comfort zone. Ravi, the treasure was never gold or jewels, Baeva explained. It was the lesson of hard work and determination. You found the strength within yourself that you never knew you had. This lesson is worth more than any buried treasure. Ravi left the field that day with a newfound respect for work and a sense of pride. Slowly, he began helping his parents with the chores, waking up with the other villagers, and putting effort into his tasks. The villagers, who once doubted him, began to notice the change and praised his growth. Over time, Ravi grew into a hard-working young man, admired by the entire village. The lesson he'd learned that day in the field stayed with him for life, proving that sometimes, the greatest treasure lies in what we become through our efforts. The moral of the story is that hard work, perseverance, and dedication are the real treasures in life. By stepping out of his comfort zone, Ravi discovered his inner strength and the satisfaction that comes from putting effort into something meaningful. The story highlights that true rewards come not from shortcuts or easy solutions, but from resilience, discipline, and the willingness to embrace responsibility. Hard work not only builds character but also earns respect and brings a sense of pride and fulfillment that no material wealth can replace. This is Storywave YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.